Well, hello, welcome back to the channel. It's been quite a long time. I think the last video was the one I made in North Devon or North Somerset at Porlock Weir back at the beginning of August. I've been a bit busy with work and I've had quite a few other commitments which I've probably explained in one of the earlier videos, but I just wanted to bring you up to date with a what's in my bag type of video at the moment, and also what I've got planned coming up in the next few weeks, which I'm hoping to take you guys along with me so that you can see the adventure as it happens. The first thing I want to talk about is my cameras. As a lot of you know, I've had medium format cameras in the past, and I've actually still got, or at least now got, another medium format camera. And I've also always had Sonys. I've ditched all my Sony equipment earlier this year and I moved across to this, which is an Olympus OM1 from OM Systems, and having had the older EM1 Mark III, this is such an improvement. I've been so impressed with it. I've had several of these and I've had several lenses, and I use MPB. I'm not sponsored by them, but I use MPB to switch my equipment around quite frequently as I try things out and decide what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep. And what I've got with this Olympus OM1, this has been modified. If I show you, it's actually been modified. If you look in there, you can see it's got an internal filter. And it's been modified so that I can do infrared photography, but I also wanted to retain the ability to do normal visible light photography. So what I had it converted by a company called ProTech Conversions, which is a guy based in somewhere near East Grinstead. He is an ex-Olympus engineer, and he converts cameras for people. And these clip-in filters that I've got, rather than having them on the front of the lens, I actually put them behind the lens. I've got in here, this little packet has got 3 different filters. There are 2 different, I think it's 680 and 720 nanometer filters in there. And there's also a red one. I'm not sure what frequency that is, but the one that's currently in the camera is what's called an IR cut filter. And what that does is it replaces the filter that's on the front of the sensor that has been subsequently removed by the conversion, and it allows me to use this as a normal light camera as normal, with virtually no effect on the shutter speeds and aperture and white balance or anything of that sort. But as soon as I want to do some serious infrared photography, I can choose one of these 3, which they simply clip in. They're so easy to put in and out. In fact, a little bit too easy. I'm always afraid it can fall out, but they don't fall out. Anyway, long story short, that combination there gives me a fully infrared capable camera with 3 different infrared frequencies, plus I can use it as a normal camera as well. I was a little skeptical about this working correctly, so I actually had a second body. But I've been so blown away by how well this works with the infrared cut filter on it for normal photography that I decided I didn't need 2 cameras. So I've sold the other one to MPB, as I mentioned, and I'm also still not sponsored by them. With this Olympus camera, I've got 2 lenses primarily. I've got an 8-25 f4, which is one of these strange ones that extends out and then starts to work. While it's in its closed position, the camera will not fire up. It'll only say lens needs to be extended, which is there, 8mm, and then it goes out to 25, which in full frame terms, that's 16-50, which is quite a handy range to have. So I've got 16-50 in full frame terms covered, and this other lens I've got with it is again an f4 Pro lens, and this is the 40-150. So that's an 80 to 300 equivalent in full frame terms. So between these 2 lenses I can go from 16mm to 300mm with a little gap in between, 25-40 stroke 50-80. I can live without having anything in that particular gap, and that gives me an incredibly light and easy to work with, very versatile camera. Now, as I might have mentioned on the previous video, this OM1 only has a 20 megapixel sensor, which I thought was going to be an issue for me. but I've subsequently tried it, and I'll show you the other camera in a minute, and I'll explain why this still impresses me. I can use the automatic merging facility of this, multiple shots are merged, to produce a 50 megapixel image. And when I do that, and they're all built-in camera, unlike the Sony, which you need to run their software on afterwards, which is always a chore, and I don't like having to do it. This does it in camera, and it corrects if there's any movement in any part of the frame. So the images stitched with this are really very good, and that's handheld. What I also can do is, on a tripod, I can use this camera in 80 megapixel mode, but it can't be handheld, it has to be on a tripod. And I tend to I'm quite content most of the time with the 50 megapixel images it's taking. And these little lenses are really beautifully made. They're all waterproof. The whole camera system's much more waterproof than anything I've ever owned. We have an articulated screen. Okay, it's not quite like the new Sony's articulated and pop out one, but this is more than adequate for my needs. So that's what I've got as my main everyday camera system, which, as I've mentioned already, covers both infrared and normal light quite happily. Now the other beast I've got is this, and this is a Hasselblad X2D 100C, which is 100 megapixel full frame, medium format camera, and I've got a series of lenses with it. This is beautiful. If you've ever owned or been in a really expensive car, you appreciate the difference between that and an ordinary car. This, in camera terms, is the same. This just feels pure luxury. They're not cheap, I'll admit that, freely admit that. Don't mind the fact that they're relatively expensive. This was second hand from MPB, so I paid, I think, about £6,300 for the body alone. They're £7,600 roughly new. This one is new effectively. You can't tell it from a new camera. There's not a mark on it. It's a really nice piece of kit. And you'll also notice I've got an L bracket on it. I don't know the company's name. PR Pro. I can't pronounce it. PR Pro. And this is specific to the X1D and the X2D. And that just gives me a good mounting point both vertically and horizontally for this. With this camera I bought 3 prime lenses. I wanted to cover the majority of the range that I use for landscape work, and this camera, I stress, I bought primarily for landscape type activities, and I'll come on to that more in a minute. But I bought, and again these lenses were all second hand from MPB and I like new to look at. I got the XCD 21mm lens, which in full frame terms is about 16 millimeters. So that's one of them. Quite chunky, quite heavy, very well built. I also bought the really diminutive, for medium format camera terms anyway, this 45 f4.5 lens, and it's got a magnetic filter ring on it, as all of the lenses have, hence these little caps that I clip on. I put this yellow tape on so one, I can see where they are if it's not very light, and also I can pull them off easily as well. But that little lens on that body is such a pleasure to use, and this is a 45mm, which in full frame terms is about 32, 33, something like that. So that's my in-betweeny. And then I got this one, which is an XCD 90 3.2 f3.2 lens, and this is the longest one I currently own, and again it's got a magnetic filter holder on it, and I'll come to the filters I'm using in a minute. But that again is a lovely piece of kit, and again it was bought second hand, saving a fair chunk on the new price. I did want the longest lens Hasselblad make, which is the 135 with the 1.7 converter. So you can't pick them up for love nor money. I've been searching on eBay, I've been searching everywhere to get hold of one. I found a 135, but I wanted it with a teleconverter, so I had a semi-tele lens for this camera system. I've not found one, and whether I will is another thing, but those two systems are a pleasure to use. for different reasons, very different reasons. The filters I'm using are K's filters. That is a 6, by the look of it, a 6 stop. I think I've got oh, this is a 6 stop, that was a 10 stop. And the other filter I have, which you can't replicate any other way in Photoshop or anything, is a polarizer. So I've got those 3 filters, and they're all 82 millimeters filter size, which fit on all of those different XCD lenses. So that's what I'm using at the moment camera wise, plus as a comparison, iPhone 14 Pro, which I'm also using as a camera on and off. That is what I'm using camera wise. I've got rid of all of the Sony gear. I've still got my big Sirui tripod, and I've also got the one that's sitting underneath this camera I'm talking to you on now, which is it's a carbon version of the Peak Designs travel tripod, which I really like because it's so easy to have with you. So that is what equipment I'm using at the moment. But what am I going to use it on? Right, now comes to the crux of the matter. At the end of this week, on Friday, I'm flying out to Sweden on an early flight, and I'm spending 4 days with a good friend of mine, Hans Strand. I'll put a link in the description below to his site, his photography, his Facebook page. But Hans is actually a Hasselblad ambassador and always has been, and he is an incredibly talented photographer, and I've got to know him over the last, since 2016 was the first time I met him. I went on a workshop to Iceland and we hit it off pretty well. We've got a similar background in engineering and photography, and he's a splendid bloke. He really is a nice bloke, and I'm just going to spend 4 days with him on his own, and he's going to take me around Stockholm and the surrounding areas, and primarily we'll be doing filming trees, lakes, anything that shows up really, rocks, coast. There's a nice coast around there as well. So I'm going to take all of this gear and I'm going to bring you guys along as well, hence the little camera that's on this tripod that will be going with us, and let's see what the adventure brings. I don't know, I've never been to that part of Sweden before. It's an adventure. So that takes 4 days, and then a week after that I'm flying up to Inverness, and I've rented a little cottage up there just nearly at Island Onan Castle on the mainland, just before the bridge over to Skye. So I'll be spending quite a bit of time discovering Torridon, around that part, the west coast, the upper west coast towards Ullapool, and also I'll spend some time on Skye. I'm there for about 9 days. I'm going to really make the most of that time, and again I'm going to start producing video during that time, so you guys will get to see it. And then at the beginning of the 26th of November, the 25th of November, I've got an exhibition. Unfortunately it's bad timing, but I was supposed to be going out to Iceland on the 25th. I've had to delay it a day because of this exhibition that I'm putting on. So I'll be flying out to Iceland on the 26th and staying there for about 10-12 days, and I'm hiring a car, and I'm going to basically do the south coast of Iceland in the winter. I know it'll be quite extreme. I've been before several times, but again I'm going to vlog that, and I'm going to go to the places more or less that most people don't tend to get to. I've got a big 4x4, so I'm going to be able to go in quite a few places that ordinary cars can't go. So again, I'm going to vlog that and you guys get to see. So that's really it. That's the update where we are at the moment, what's going on, what I intend to do, and let's see if we can get the channel some more subscribers. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next video. Well, before I actually wind up completely, I thought I'd show you, this is partly a gear type of video, I thought I'd show you the bag that I'm using. I can get all of the gear I've just shown you in this rather compact little think tank bag that I've had for a little while. It's a think tank, doesn't say which model it is, right? No, I'm not sure, it doesn't say. But let me just show you it. Here we have think tank bag. It's got back straps, and internally what I've got is, where did I put those filters? They're over here. Excuse me while I just reverse. I've got the filters slotting in to their own little divide there. I've got a lens cloth down here, which interestingly fits the OM1 with the lens on, fits in there. The Hasselblad quite happily fits in here. The two longer lenses are both the same size, so they fit perfectly in this space. I also put these microfiber cloths, which are absolutely excellent, in underneath most of the equipment. There is another lens here. It's a 60mm macro lens, which I use for the OM1. That's a lovely little lens. Look how tiny it is. That's a pleasure to use. I didn't mention it in the video, but essentially what we do is the Hasselblad lenses fit in this end, and notice I'm putting them in with this microfiber cloth around them so that they can't bump into each other. They're all nicely fitted in there. That's Hasselblad itself is fitted in there, and then the other OM lens fits in there without any problem. And again, there's plenty of padding around it to ensure these things don't bump into each other, like so. So that's what I've got. I've also got a remote release here for the OM1. I've got some spare batteries for both systems in that pouch, and the filters, wherever they've disappeared to, normally fit. Where did I put the filters? I've lost them now. They're here, over here. Right, they quite happily fit just in here between these two lenses. And then that's all ready to go. And that's what I'll be taking with me on the aeroplane. That's a carry-on legitimate size for the plane. It's well within the weight limit. And that's what I'll be taking with me on these trips. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, and click the notification icon and the bell, and you'll be able to be notified when I upload new videos.